You're going live. All right. All right, everybody, welcome to the Phys Ed Summit 2.0. I guess I should wait for a few viewers, shouldn't I? Because I see 0 viewers. I'll wait just a second. All right, well, let's get started. So, welcome to the Phys Ed Summit 2.0, and I'm William Bode. I'll be the moderator for today's chat. And just a couple of housekeeping things that we would keep you informed about just using technology. But we are so glad that you're able to join us. And as you've joined us, just a reminder that we've got 4 or 5 videos going on at one time over the Physedagogy Google Plus page. So if for whatever reason the video feed stops, please check out the conference program for the new links. It may take us a few minutes to get it started rolling again, but we will get back to you. So we'd also like to thank the participants for taking the time to attend the summit. Hopefully you had an opportunity to see Dr. Amanda Stanek's opening keynote for us. What a great way to get us started saying no to the status quo. Love that message. And so we also want to thank our presenters for volunteering their time and their resources and their knowledge to share with our PE community. And last but not least, we definitely want to thank Spark PE for their sponsorship of the Phys Ed Summit 2.0. Their strong support for online physical education professional development. And you can visit Spark's website at sparkpe.org to learn more about Spark PE teacher resources, on-site workshops, and content-matched equipment. Some exciting things that Spark PE is doing for us is they have donated 1 Spark Dance DVD, 1 digital physical education program, 1 Summer Institute registration, and a $150 gift certificate to the Spark store. So for all you lucky folks out there, put your name in for the drawing at the end of the summit on our feedback survey and get a chance to win one of those great prizes from Spark. So in order to receive your PD hours, we ask that you fill out the survey to the summit as well. And during, after Block 1 and before Block 2, we're going to have a Spark Brain Booster by Jeff Mushkin to kind of get us up and get us moving. All right. So now we're ready to go. Again, I'm William Bode. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, a high school PE teacher, and been doing it for 22 years. But I'm the moderator. Today you're going to really get a great opportunity to see Rich Wiles and his standard-based assessments. And I was able to preview this a week or so ago, and he does a phenomenal job of using the PLN to show everybody's assessments. So you are in for a treat. Rich, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing, Bill?
All right. So we're just going to jump right to you, and I'm going to let you take over the screen.
Sounds
and
good.
If you want to introduce yourself real briefly, and then get started.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rich Wiles. I am from Smyrna Park, Maryland. I teach elementary physical education at Smyrna Park Elementary in Anne Arundel County, and I work on numerous different projects all the time. So, also a part of the Mayford board here in the state. So, I'd like to welcome you to the second session of standards-based grading. So, we're going to try to review some of the stuff we did back in October, and from there we'll then head into some of the cool new stuff and stuff I find on Twitter. I mean, that's kind of where we have some great sharing ideas going on. So I'm going to go shoot us over to the presentation. And does everybody see the presentation now? Cool.
I see it.
Awesome. So today, welcome to Standards-Based Grading Part 2. Part 1 kind of focused on pretty much what is a standard-based lesson, and it kind of explained the different types of assessments. And we're going to go run through a couple of them real quick, but this one's going to be more about application. And application of assessments is important. Assessments don't have to look and feel, they don't all have to be paper and pencil. They can be a multiple variety of different techniques, and there's many different ways to, look at student performance. And I think we sometimes get stuck because of all the other areas in school, reading and writing, that we forget that we're a movement-based class. And sometimes our assessments need to be movement-based, and I'm a big believer in that. And if we are doing any type of written activities or stuff, we still should make sure that we're getting the maximum amount of physical activity time during our session. So let's review from Part 1. Exit objectives are what we all want the students to know and do by the end of the grade / year. Okay, that doesn't mean every kid's going to have all the objectives at the end of the year and understand all the content correctly, but they should have a general knowledge and be able to hopefully meet that in about that same period time period. So that's what your exit objectives are. Exit objectives are what we need or what we should expect the student to do by the end of the year. That was from Part 1. In Part 1, we looked at assessment. We had to learn that assessment is not a bad word. Assessment is a word, and with standard-based grading, it's a very important word. It allows the teachers, schools, and school districts to track student achievement, and it allows them to evaluate curriculum and promote program improvement. One thing we don't do, and I think this crew does a good job online of doing, is talking about reflection. How do you know what you need to do if you have not reflected upon what you've taught? So we need to really make sure we do that through student achievement on different assessments, through evaluating our curriculums. If something's not working, why are we still doing it? And that's, I guess, a mind frame that I've always believed in. Also, we need to, to promote program improvement. Because it was done this way 10 years ago, it doesn't mean it's going to always work now. So we need to make sure that when we're using standard-based grading, we should be working on current practices and working towards our goal of improvement of everybody in our program. A couple of terms you should know. Formal assessment is usually used for a student's grade and is administered by the teacher. An informal is a reflected grade that is not really graded, but can be a peer self-assessment and observation, a response to a discussion question, or a pretest. It can kind of help move instruction. That's the best way to describe it. And we need to have these checkpoints throughout your lessons so that you're making sure the kids are understanding the information, and are we working towards that exit objective / outcome that we would be looking at. Formative assessment, this is the type that is used to guide instruction. So formative assessment guides your instruction. This is the one that you would be using during your instruction, during your units. Summative is the opposite. Summative is the end of an instructional period to determine knowledge the students have gained through your instruction, okay? So the difference is formative, it's ongoing. Summative should be towards the end of that instructional period. Summative also could be used if you're just trying to, get a section or a skill. It could be a summative assessment too in the big overall arching unit. Okay, so those are the terms that you're going to kind of need to know just to remind you. So we have formal and informal, formative and summative. Okay, so today this approach is more looking at how the community and some great resources that we have for assessment and standard-based grading. I'm a big believer that we're in a time where we have a wealth of knowledge, and we now have so much knowledge coming in that sometimes it's just hard to comprehend everything that is coming in at you. I mean, I love Twitter, I love Voxer, and I love the interactions, but if we can't apply that, I think we're missing a key step. So today my goal of this is to pretty much focus on that. So for today, our objective is to provide examples of feedback for students and teachers to use in order to gain understanding of skill and concept development. And when you're watching this, please try to keep these two questions in the back of your head. And I think every time I look at things online, these are the two questions I always ask myself. How do you see it working for you? Not how the teacher used it there, but how could you see it working in your classroom? I think that's a great one we need to look at. I think we also need to look at question 2. How could you modify it to work for you? I mean, I know that my average class size is about anywhere between 20 to 30. I know some people I've seen online, they say they have those monster classes of 50 to 75 students. You know, you're going to have to figure ways to take these assessments using the standard-based grading model and somehow tweak them so that they work into your program. I mean, that's the key. We have all these ideas, so when we're like thinking about them, how can we use them? So that's where we're going to head today, and I really want you to take a look at these. I tried my best to make sure I cited all my sources for everybody because I think there's so much wealth of knowledge. We need to start communicating with everybody, and that's what I'm really working on with this presentation today. So the first thing I got from our professional learning network here online is I looked at pre-assessment ideas. So a pre-assessment is an activity that students use when they enter the gym. Okay, so pre-assessment activities should be quick, simple, but you gain a very quick understanding. For me, it's very important to have that because in a 30-minute class, I don't have much time. I know some of you have longer periods of time, but I try to look at things that are very quick and simple ideas that you could use to pre-assess your students' knowledge. And I think 2 of the easiest ones that any teacher could use is the one from Joe Bailey up here is an easy one. If you use sticky notes, it's a great way that you could have the question posted on her little picture here. It shows Wall of Happiness, and students commented on that. If you just posed your question there of what you would kind of going to ask the students, they could then put their responses, and you would have quick feedback there to figure out, hey, how do I need to pace this lesson, and how can I improve overall my style of teaching for this unit? Another one is from Kevin Tiller. This is one of his pictures, and he has such a great use, and I have got a couple of them in here from his website. I know his website, I think, has changed over to a Google account. I made this presentation a little while ago, so please check out his stuff, and he's the Phys Ed Review on Twitter. But he does these different things, and I like his activities because the idea, it's posing a question. It could be used as end of the unit assessment. I like the idea of this one for a pre-unit assessment. You could use it when you're learning the skeletal system and then working in the body systems. You could work it that way. You could also work it in if you were doing, you know, a jump rope activity. How could you figure out how to incorporate this into that? So we're getting those, you know, connections to, you know, humans, you know, anatomy and to our lessons, and how could we, you know, tie that science into physical education? And I think both of these ideas are really cool ideas that you could use in your classroom. Another big one that I'm a big fan of, I like for pre-assessment is, and I'm a big fan of Andy, he has some really cool stuff. I saw this quote from him last week. It says, I was able to narrow down on 4 generally agreed upon areas early this week. I used the 4 areas to springboard to 4 new questions that needed to be broken down further. So what Andy does is he is the inquiry-based phys ed guy, and his website's down there, and he has some really great stuff. But what he does is he pulls questions from the students, and he does a really nice job of figuring out how we could do this. This was for a movement composition class. Movement composition could be anywhere from locomotor sequence. You could use this with a tumbling sequence or gymnastics sequence. And his overall question then kind of broke off into different areas of how can we do things above? You know, how do we ask for feedback? How can we memorize our parts? How can we put more energy and effort into it? And how do we get better with our timing? I really like this idea of questioning, and I think we need to sometimes focus more on how we're asking students, you know, to understand what we're doing and why we do it. I think those are very important things that we need to look at. So I really like his questioning. In my personal room, I've been working with same idea. It's questioning, and I've gotten these things off of Amazon. They're whiteboard sheets, and I really love them. They're becoming my favorite teaching tool that we have, because you could pose a question on the board. On the far left is one of my questions that we were going to do for creating a tumbling sequence. You know, I was looking at it that way. But I really like the idea of pre-assessing and then using the board. So the first board was pre-assessment, and as the lesson grew, I let the students design their routines on the wall. And some people are like, why would you let kids write on the walls? Well, it allows the kids to understand the information they need to comprehend. And most kids write it, and they then figure out how they need to understand the concept there. I was almost ready to yell at a kid last week because I was like, why are you drawing comic books all over my walls? He goes, but it's my routine. And I looked at it and I'm thinking to myself, the kid's, took his knowledge. He's got it pre-assessed. We figured out what we need to do, and he's applying the knowledge that he needed to, make sure that he would then understand the concept at the end. And he did a great job creating his tumbling sequence this past week after 3 weeks of snow and all that wonderful weather. So it's a really, really cool idea. Something simple. They're on Amazon. They're like $30 for the sheets. You can get them to cover all your walls. They stick to anything, but it's a great idea if you would need it for pre-assessment. From pre-assessment, I'm going to go into some formative assessment ideas that I've seen online, and I think there's so many good formative assessment ideas online. Here's 2 of them that I think are really good. One's from Joey. It's at thephysicaleducator.com. He has these on his website, and I like each. He has these cue cards pre-made, and you could just run them off. And I find myself when I look at things like this could be an easy assessment or a formative assessment that I could use. I like it because A, it has a visual of what the kid's doing. B, it has a breakdown of the skill of what we're working on. And I like that when he puts the QR codes, and I like when people put the QR codes in for video demonstrations because then all of that information is there and the student can go back and look at it. So if I wanted to use it as a formative assessment idea, I could say, hey, looking at the 4 pictures on the cue card, and if you had it projected on the wall or if you had these as cards around your room, you could use them both ways. Of the 4 steps, are you completing the 4 steps correctly? And you could totally break this down to, you could set up a Google form and ask them that. You could do it in that direction. Or you can just use, your hands and give a thumbs up, thumbs down, or how many, of the 4 skills, how many are you meeting? And how many, of the skill breakdown, how many of the different steps are you meeting? So I think it's a good, way of looking at things. For pinch cards, that's the one next to it. You could use the pinch card in relationship to the bounce pass page, and a pinch card is pretty much just a quick assessment tool that I use. I've had it for years, and I've adapted it many different ways, but a pinch card is a card kids can pinch, and you can do a real quick formative assessment. You can see if they got it, like if they had their finger on the got it, or if they need help. I use it when we're doing many different of our skill station activities or skill development activities because it then allows me for a quick thing to see who do I need to help with that is having a hard time comprehending the movement and who already understands it that can move to the next step of the progression. So 2 cool formative assessment ideas. Any questions so far?
No, we're good. We've got a little chat going on today's meet. They're talking about the high school level, Rich, and this is where I've been kind of answering the questions for them. The high school level, they want to remove participation from the grading, which I think is outstanding. It's a great practice because participation is and becomes a grade, but participation is an expectation. When you go into a math class, you're expected to work out the problems. That's participation. When you go into an English class, you're expected to read. That's participation. So those are behaviors, and we need to really help elevate physical education in the eyes of our educational colleagues. Removing participation is a big step, and we're having that conversation on today's meet, and it's a practice that we really got to work on, and using the standard-based grade assessments is a great way to start really using grading as an evaluation of learning, and which is what grades should be. So as you keep on going, you've got some great resources that are going to help these folks replace those participation and dress-out grades with really good formative assessments and summative assessments that's going to evaluate learning, that just gives you the data to say, hey, there's learning going on in my classroom. Student A has learned this, student B has learned that, and it really protects you as the teacher when you ever have a conference with a parent or an administrator or even a student.
I agree, and like right now in my system, our grade books are automatically electronically linked to our parents' email, so our parents can check their kids' grades at any time. So I have parents all the time ask me, why did they get on, a rubric checklist a 3 out of 4 instead of a 4? And I like to open those dialogues, and I feel like that's something overall as a profession we need to open that dialogue and have parents understand why we assess and what's our goal of the assessment. We're not in there just we're not playing games anymore, and we're not great. For dressing, that's not really a grade. If we show up if a kid in real life application, if a kid shows up to a job site and they're not prepared, they're not going to be able to work. So we have to get rid of that mentality. So I agree with you guys. Ready to go for the next one?
Let's go for it.
So some formative assessment ideas I like. This is another 2 great ones from online. And if you haven't heard of the application Comic Life, it's awesome. You can get it on a Mac, you can get it on an iPad. And what it does, it allows you to create pretty much cartoon-looking assessments. So 2 of them are here. I like the PE grading rubric on the side. It's a very quick one you could use at the end of the lesson. You could use it for the elementary level with a 4-3-2-1 rubric. This is from Kevin and Mike Graham, and they made this on their own, and it's really cool. I like it. You could put it in a plastic sheet. You could have them write on it. You could erase it. When I have 8 to 10 classes in a day, it's nice to be able to quickly change them out. I also like the dribbling one, and I feel bad that I couldn't find this on my Twitter feed, but I saved the images, and I don't know who it is. I know he's a friend of Sarah GH, but he makes these Big 5 dribbling diagrams of each skill, and you could totally use this as an assessment as you're walking around. When I use them, I ask the kids, hey, are you showing me the Big 5 for that day, or are you showing me those skills that we've listed? And one thing I make sure about is when I'm using a rubric, my kids know about it in the beginning of their lesson. They know what I'm looking for on the skills that we're working on for that day or whatever concept we're working on. So both of these have a good way that you could totally build them into your classroom. You can find these online. It's a great app, but I would totally, if you're at the high school level, I could totally see your kids even, having a blank one with Comic Life, and you could totally have your kid, draw the pictures depending on your class time, or they could create it that way. I mean, that would be a cool way. Like you put at the top, offensive and defensive strategies, and you could then figure a way they could have to diagram the different plays or different things if you were teaching more of a teaching game for understanding lesson or a team sports class. So a couple of option ideas for formative assessment. From there, big things I like to use, and I think there's some very good technology pieces. It depends on what your connectivity is in your classroom. I know that we have the Google for Educator session going on and the app, so they probably are sharing something similar to this. But Google Sheets or Excel is a great way to build checklists, and you can then figure out what your kids are doing, and you can develop checklists and grade them. So if you have a whole big class, I like checklists because I can, if we're playing a whole activity group game or small activity group games, I can visually see them very quickly. If you tied this in with video assessment, then you have the video of the skills and the checklist, and you can work them together. There's a lot of great books for this, and one of the books I would say if you're an elementary person, Everyone Can is a great book. It has a ton of these different checklists in it, and the book has plenty of different options for you and different physical movement assessments in it. It's a great one to look at, and I would totally say try it out and try Google Sheets. Cool thing with Sheets I like over Excel, I mean, it depends on what your school system uses. If you're Excel, you then would have OneDrive for Business, or you would have Google Drive, but I like the fact that if you start it on your tablet in the classroom, you then can open it up on your desktop and you can automatically put it in your gradebook. So it's a very simple transition. If you're looking for ideas of where you need to find these standards or checklists, check with what your state has. If your state doesn't have anything, try Shape America's. If you're in a different country, check what your local ones say and modify them to what you need. And you could also do a checklist if you wanted to for student reflection. So if you gave this to a kid in class, say at the high school level, they could self-reflect on, hey, are they meeting all the cues needed to get their grade for the day? And I think that's an interesting way we need to look at it. Another great one is Google Forms. Google Forms is a simple check for understanding. I'm a big fan of Google Forms, though I feel like in the past month, because of days off and snow days and stuff, I have not got to use it in the past month. But it can be used on a laptop, a phone. It's got the tablet, whatever you have. And if you could do it anywhere, if you have the link up and you put it to a QR code, your kids could scan it and they have it on their phones or they have it on their device in their classroom. You can use it as basic as having one computer or a whole classroom of computers. But I like it because you could check for your skills throughout the lesson, and then you can also do it during your lesson. One thing I've been doing is I do it after class now. With a 30-minute class, I don't have time always to do it during my class period. So I do it. I set up a link either on our Blackboard school account or I put it on just our county server at the school level, and the kids can go in and they can answer their questions on their own. It's just another way of seeing if they understand, the concepts and knowledge that we're teaching them. And I like it a lot because it's a very easy way for myself to assess. Because if you create your assessment like this, I mean, this is just as simple as writing in a Word document, and you can put cute graphics or you can put images in of the skills. Once they take the test, you have automatic feedback of what they did during the assessment. So on this sheet, this is a whole class of 23 kids' answers very quick and right away. And, that's a very important thing, that you have all that data. And so if you had, 300 kids or 400 kids, if all your data looked like that, you could go by and quickly grade that and making sure they're going for their, understanding what they're doing. So I think it's a great tool that we have.
Yeah, I love Nick, Rich. I love Google Forms. We're kind of having a little discussion here on our today's meet about recording self-assessments and so forth. A quick Google form allows students to record information that you as a teacher can house in one place. That saves us so much time because we all know we've got big classes, and to be able to be efficient with our time, man, I love Google products, and so I'm so happy when I saw Google Forms come across your presentation, because if you're not using Google Forms in your classes, you really ought to look into it. There are a lot of physical educators out there that are using it. Reach out to them on Twitter, ask them to share. I know, Rich, you'd be glad to. I know I would be glad to.
Yep.
Again, I'm at the high school level. Rich, you're at the elementary level. So we've got so many different things that we could use Google Forms for. So definitely, for my folks that are on today's meet, Google Forms is definitely an answer to helping you out.
So I know this is one of your favorite things that you're using right now, so I had to add it in. Another good way, and it's a good way you can, formatively assess or summatively assess your students' performance, is a lot of teachers are using solo taxonomy in phys ed, and it's a great way to check for understanding. These are photos that Joe put up online, and right next to her outcome board, she had their solo assessment. So on the left side of the screen is the pre-assessment, and it was checking, for understanding of healthy related components. So they were at where most of them put their sticky notes on that diagram on the side was they could understand the concept pretty well. Is that correct, Bill? So on the sticky notes, they started at that level on day one. And then a couple days later, she put this picture up, and what was my current understanding of the health-related components. So the kids who could understand the term in the beginning, now when a couple days, next class later, they could apply that concept, and this was an example of how they applied that concept using the solo taxonomy approach. The book is on Amazon if you're looking for it. I think it's like $15 in paperback. It's like $50 in hard copy. Great books. There's 2 of them for phys ed. If you're a middle school or high school teacher, I think this is one of these books that I would definitely put into your library. It's a great way of teaching, I think.
Yeah, it is. And again, on today's meet, they were talking about, there are athletes out there that, they could do the skill easily. Solo taxonomy really differentiates your instruction to where you've got the different levels, and the unistructural, multistructural are very basic. But then when you get to the extended abstract, which is the very top of that picture that you see there, those are kids that are your athletes. Those kids that come into your class that pick up physical skills really easy, but we want to challenge them as well. We don't want to give them the skill and drill that sometimes people use that's very basic. We want to challenge them, and by challenging them, we're getting them to help their mentors. We're helping them create videos. We're doing things that allow them to show us their learning in a different way. So yeah, I would definitely, for secondary teachers, solo taxonomy is a great model to follow, and Pam Hook, the author of the book, does a great job of explaining from beginning to end how to use it. So that's definitely a great resource.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my book in the mail. It does take about 2 to 3 weeks, I've learned. So that's
Yeah.
yeah. So that's one idea that you guys could use for assessment and physical education. It's we have to start applying different trains of thought of how we assess, and I really like that style. So please check that one out. Another one, I picked like some whole group formative assessments, and I thought these were like really cool ones. And these are people that I did have a couple followers. They're not as big as the other friends, but I like the one that Sandy Fields did. She has the students, and they would take a skeleton. How we had our skeleton in the beginning with all of our bones, and the question, how many bones are in the body. And now for an activity that she was doing for a formative assessment, the kids could do a relay style system where they were running, they were getting the bones, and then they were laying them on the floor, and they were checking for that understanding right there. Looks like we're missing a couple of, we have no radius ulna, we're missing a couple things there, but we're missing different body parts. So these are just different tools that you could use in your closet that you could have. I think large foam skeletons are cool. It would be cool if you could find a way to work that into like a STEM lesson with your science teachers. So just a simple way of doing formative assessment in phys ed, but it's not the traditional way. I think his name's Albie, and he is he's another teacher, and I really thought this was a cool concept. And I don't know if many people follow him, but he has some really cool things out there. And his way was they were doing, it looks like a heart rate activity, and it was kind of a cool way. Well, I guess I would approach it as, and the way I was thinking of it, you could do it as a jump rope lesson. You start out with, your resting heart rate. You then work on your aerobic fitness, and then you track and graph it on the blacktop as you go. And I think the way that the kids then have an understanding of, it's another visual understanding of the assessment. Hey, when I exercise, my heart rate, increases. And if I push it so hard, then we can even start talking about, anaerobic exercise. So I thought it was just a cool way of assessing students in a whole group, and I really liked that picture because I don't think I've seen anything like that. So I thought it was a cool idea for kids to use, and you could use it at any grade level with mapping it out. I could see you, if you were at the high school level, you were doing something, you could even map it out, put the bleachers out, and you can map it out on the whole basketball floor, which would be a cool idea. The next thing we're going to talk about are some self-assessments. This self-assessment comes from Judy Schmid. It is and then she was identifying the different skill components that you would use in tumbling. And it's just a cool assessment because the kids are taking, the skill components they've learned, and if I'm correct, this is, I think, a 4th grade lesson. So they were taking balance, agility, coordination, power, reaction time, and speed, and they would then have to apply them to their tumbling unit and how they were doing it. It also was cool because it kind of tied in with the last heart rate activity. When they were doing, I think, the obstacle course and they were, doing it, they were also tracking their heart rate. So we can assess many different things in one lesson, and it's a cool way that the students then understand what they're doing. So it was kind of cool because at the bottom there you have the numbers on the screen, and that's, a guesstimation of the kid's heart rate using, the wonderful theory. But it's just a good way that students are applying the concept they learn in other classes when they're doing other activities. So cool self-assessment for the learners. Nice one they did there from Judy. This is a kind of a combo. I know Spark's the sponsor of today's events, and we have Kevin. And what Kevin did was he took Spark's curriculum and he designed his own assessments with it, which were really cool. And these are some of his sample skill cards that he used for self-assessment for tumbling. And you could do this with any image that you would find, and you could just put it into a program and create these little assessments. But he did different ones for jumping and landing. I thought they were pretty cool. He did them so that the kids would look at the skills and understand what they are, and then they could circle their favorite jump, and it was just a cool thing. And on the back it said, "Why was this trick your favorite?" and can you answer on black. But it's just a very simple self-assessment sheet that you could use with your learners, which I think is a very cool hybrid of it's a curriculum that you can purchase with an educator's idea. So just like this whole presentation, look at different ways of assessing. You can hybrid things together, and it makes awesome program for your school. Another cool one is the cell peer assessment and evaluation phys ed. I'm a big fan of cupcake grading. Sarah and her cupcake grading analogy, I've used it all the time. I know there's a pizza pie analogy now too, but these are have you ever tried the cupcake grade? So this is one Joey made using her cupcake grading template idea, but it was for assessment for like offensive and defensive strategies. And I really liked it because you could have your whole team on one page and you would grade yourselves individually, of how you were performing those skills. So you could have multiple students grading there, and that you could have a quick, peer assessment or self-assessment. And I think it's just a really cool tool that Joey created. They're on his website, and I think if you're at the middle or high school level, they're still practical. And who does not like cupcakes or pizza? So I would say try it out and see what you think about it. Any questions there, Bill?
No, we're doing good. Still having our little side conversation. Courtney and Nick and myself just talking about not student behaviors, but one of the standards that most of us have is being able to assess respect Lee, I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. Respecting teammates, including others, being responsible, and so how do we assess those things? And so we were just kind of talking back and forth just about we embed it within our lessons. We have rubrics that we use to help make sure students know where we're going. That it's not a surprise, it's just an expectation. And we show them at the beginning, like a map, like if we're getting ready to go on a trip, we show them the map. And this is where I want you to go, and these are the different places that you could go, but we want to get you here, and that's kind of the top of your rubric of how you want to act and how you want to go about classes, how do you want to interact, conflict resolution within a game setting. And so we're just kind of talking back and forth through that.
Man, I got shot myself really far ahead in this presentation. Okay, cool. I'm glad there's conversation on the side this time. It's good to hear that's going on, everybody. So cool. Yeah. So next place we're heading is, I think I headed to the right spot. Give me a second. There we go. Yeah. I think one thing we always forget about, and I think this is very important, and we need to make sure that we're hitting this, is that we need to look at those inclusion assessments and the type of grading we're doing. If a child needs certain modifications, we have to create our rubrics so it meets the needs of the student, because we're here to meet the needs of all of our students, not just a certain handful of students. So what I did on this one was I found it was a Teaching Disability in Sport. A good book. It has a lot of great rubrics already built into it with the pictures in it, and it pretty much shows you how you would break down the rubric for the students, if the student was in a wheelchair. And I thought it was kind of cool because it kind of looks at the steps that they would use, because traditionally when you do a chest pass, you're going to step, and then you're going to step with your weight transfer and do it that way. Well, if you're in a wheelchair, you're not going to have that weight transfer the same way. So you're going to have to look at your other cues when you're assessing the student, making sure that are they doing it correctly to meet their needs. And I think one of the things we always need to do more of is, we need to contact our local specialists who can help us and modify for us and make sure we're meeting the needs of students if they have an IEP or if they have a 504 plan for their learning. So I thought it was very important that we get that in, because sometimes I feel like in phys ed we don't always hit that population well, especially I think in the as students get older, and it's more of a challenge, but we need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our learners. So that's one I'd highly recommend you looking at. From there, two summative assessment books for your library. I believe that if you're doing standard-based grading and they're going to be updated soon, I would say you need to look at the Shape America Standard books. They are great tools for you. I tried to hybrid this lesson so you could see that, some of the stuff that's on Twitter, and I wanted to give you some resources that you could use because, we need to use every resource we have. So at the elementary level, you got PE metrics, assessing standards 1 through 6 at the elementary. I know there's only 5 now, but the book is a redo of the book they printed out. So the new book now is going to align with the new standards. So they're both coming out, I think, at the Seattle Shape Conference. So you got that one. For the high school friends, if you've never heard of PE Metrics, it's a great book that you could use too. It has a great standards, the assessment standard-based grading style for summative assessments. Has some good samples of how to write questions for the upper grades too. And I think I know that most time PE Metrics people think it's, you put the video assessment, they do them in line. This is where you need, if it doesn't work for you, you need to figure a way to modify it so that you could use the rubric to grade your students. And I think those are very important things we need to look at is, if it doesn't work for you, how do you modify it to meet your needs? And I think two great resources that I would highly recommend for you. I like this summative assessment idea with inquiry-based phys ed. I know this is from Mark Williams, and I think it was cool that the way they created deeper understanding of the concept they were working on. So they were playing invasion games, and I think it was kind of, when we play, invasion games, tag or whatever, in that classification of activities, sometimes you only look at, the basic things, but I liked how he broke this down, and he was looking at different parts. So at the end, he created the deeper understanding for the students in their learning, and it was for grade 5, it looks like, and it was, in the middle he has what are the responsibilities of people and their roles, and then they broke that down, and then it shot side conversation art. From that you now have what are the characteristics do players in these roles need, and why. I like that why, and why do you select people for these roles. So I like how that inquiry-based model makes in phys ed and solo, it makes kids think, how are they going to apply these concepts to real life, and how are you going to make that physically literate, that physical literacy last for a whole lifetime, because it doesn't end when they leave us here at school. So I thought they were some really cool kind of ideas for what we need to look at and look at a different way of approaching phys ed. I think assessment is not as clear-cut like other classrooms, and I think we need to work on that. Any back channel talk?
No, Melody just joined us, and so I just said hi to her, and just checking in with her and asked her a question. So we are still doing great. I figure we got about 5 to 10 more minutes, and it looks like we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, looks good. One of the things we need to always focus on, and I think Bill had it right just a minute ago. He had it. We need to end product. We need to show them a map, and I think that Shape does this great job with the new standards of mapping it out. And there's a lot of other organizations do the same thing. I think Phys Ed in Canada, I think their website does a great job. And I think we need to understand, where is the skill introduced? Where is it mastered and where is it applied? And I think sometimes we expect students to have those skills, in certain places, but they don't always have them. I mean, I think that they created a scope and sequence when they created this new set of standards this last time, and I think it helps if you're a teacher in understanding, what needs to be met at each end of each grade level, and how are we working towards mastery of those skills. And I thought it's a very important thing, because I know not everybody's a Shape member, but I think it's information that we need to share, and you need to understand these things are out there to help guide you to better your instruction too.
Yeah, that'll help. Nick is talking about that as well. He wanted to do a scope and sequence K through 12, and I think this will really help guide him in moving in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate, one of the big things I did when we were writing our county curriculum a long time ago was we pushed really hard for this, because I think you need to see that the progression. I think it's very key, and especially if you're trying to write goals or student learning objectives or SLOs or any of those kind of things that are we need to understand this, and you could use these to build your SLOs for your students. So just important, factor we need to look at. The other ones, if you haven't seen them, the Shape has their standards up online. If you're looking for standard-based grading standards for for their grade levels, you could totally check out there. They have them. They have the PDF version online. They also have their book. It's either a paperback book or it is a ebook, and they have all the information of how you would go about doing this at the different levels. And it's a great read. Check it out. It's online. Another one, if you're in Canada, check out the Physical and Health Education in Canada. They have a really nice website, especially dealing with physical literacy and dealing with it that way. And I like their definition of physical literacy, so I think it's very important that we look at that. So I think it's pretty cool. Check out their websites. They have some great stuff for you to look at. And it kind of hits us to like our whole atmosphere of how you would do it. And one thing I've been working on a lot, and I'm very pleased that I get to even mention it here. So I've been very big on standard-based grading. And I saw kind of a couple, for the past year I've been working on this project, and we needed to figure a way in our field. We needed to make a library, and we needed a way that a good amount of resources could be in one spot. So one of the big things I've been working on, and I have a co-writer that works with me named Judy, and we work together, and we decided to take the national standards and create a standards-based grading lesson plan book, assessment book, and we did it all, and it's going to be web-based. It's going to be, hopefully, if you're at Shape out in Seattle, we're going to have their demo and stuff. So I'm going to show you like a snippet of what we've been working on, and I think it's where we need to go. I think we need to have good web-based models of, libraries for physical educators. I think we also need to have I think we need to have different types of learning environments. I think we need to have, especially at the, let me get my screen share. I think we need to make sure that we're working to better phys ed. And I know Bill likes his model of the, what's it called? He likes a big model of the EdCamp model, and I'm a big fan. And this is kind of what I've been working on. And this is pretty much, it's going to be K-5. We hopefully to expand it, and it's still in like a learning stage. But what we designed was pretty much a digital library for physical education with standard-based lessons, activities, and assessments. It's pretty much everything you would need to figure out how to use it. We designed it so it has standards, so you can search by standards. If you would click on a standard, it takes you to different lessons, and we based it on Bloom's. And I think it's a great tool that we hopefully can do. If you go in and click on a lesson, the lesson's then going to have the primary indicator with some secondary objectives to it. It will also have the different activities you would need for warm-up. It also would have your vocabulary. It would have your PDF cues to it, so you could see, if you click on them, those are links to books. We've gotten over 15 book authors on board, and we've tried to make this a place where we could hopefully grow this. And it goes into large, small area activities, a cool-down, and fitness component. So our goal is to try to hopefully make phys ed getting better. And we also have the assessments in there. So if you're looking for something like that in the future, it's there. We also have certain books linked into it, and we hopefully it will continue to grow. So that was kind of, I didn't want to push it too much, but it's kind of been what I've been working on for a year, and I really love my product. So hopefully you can get a look at it, and if not, I hope all the other stuff here can help you in what we've been working on today, because I think we have a lot of just great tools, and I think. Hi, I see Bill.
Hey.
Am I still there?
Yeah, you're still here. You went blank on us.
Huh. Interesting. I'm going to stop my screen sharing. Do you see me now? Hey, there I am.
I see you now. There you are.
So I think today my goal was to try to show you a lot of different resources. I'm going to put the Prezi on the shared document folder, and if you have any interest in looking at it and everything, if you're on Twitter, I'd say highly suggest you go check out those people and some of their ideas. I think there's some great conversation there going on. The Voxer chat group, I know that Mike Graham is, I feel like him and Justin are the unofficial spokesman for. There's a lot of great, learning going on, and I think we just need to think globally, working all together and making sure that we have a chance to really share our ideas. And I feel like the way we get better is if we share and we work together to create products that really push our field towards the forefront of hopefully making us a real subject area. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Not a real subject area, but not a real subject area, but a subject area on the same level as all the other areas that are in our buildings.
I agree, and I think taking the standard-based grading and using it and adopting a model that hits the standards, that proves learning in the classroom for each and every student is imperative. We got right now just a little talk about, our grade breakdown of how we grade our students. In our district, we're actually mandated on how we grade, and we have to have 70% formal, which are tests, assessments, any type of assessment. That's 70% of their grade, and 30% is informal, which would be some classroom assignments and so forth. And so that really forced me a couple years ago to look at how I assess kids. And if I'm really going to put 70% of their grade into an assessment or into their final grade, I need to make sure that I'm evaluating their learning and that it matches up with my standards. So I've been working on a couple projects too, and that's one of them, is getting the data behind taking away participation as a grade, as I said before, and really using a standard-based grading model that allows me to evaluate student learning. It allows the students to understand exactly what their grade is, and no matter what skill level they're at, there's a continuum there, and we meet kids where they're at. We have a lot of fun doing what we do, but there's value. I tell my kids all the time, and they think I'm a little corny, but I say my class is the most important class that you'll ever take, because you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't have your health and you don't know how to maintain your health, then that knowledge is going to go away. Your money is going to be spent on health care costs, and it's just a downward spiral. And they laugh at me, but we have a good time, and we learn at the same time. And who doesn't want to enjoy learning? Isn't that the goal of education? We just tend to do it a little better than everybody else. And I think I'm a little biased, but hey.
I'm with you, man. I totally agree with you. But I guess we're almost to the end. If you guys need anything, I'm on Twitter. You can hit me there. I'm going to have this presentation on the page. I'm going to do it right after I'm done here, and the link to it. So all the resources are there. If you need anything, please contact me. I think we just need to keep growing, and I'm hoping this presentation left off where the first one showed you how to, create a standard-based lesson. This one showed the application. So hopefully you all liked it. I tried my best to get more middle and high school in there this time. So I tried.
Well, Rich, I really love the fact that you brought in not only your perspective, but the things that we're learning from our PLN. I think our Twitter and Voxer groups are extremely strong, and they're getting stronger every day. I remember when Justin and I started this Voxer chat group with the PE, we started with like 5 or 10 of us. Now we're over 100, and we're starting to break off into a high school, an elementary, a middle school, a health, and we're getting stronger and stronger. And I think that's where our voice is going to start to be heard. Events like the Phys Ed Summit, Phys Edagogy, are coming together. Shape America is starting to make notice of what we're doing. Spark is starting to make notice of the strong connection that we have with one another to make physical education better and stronger throughout the world. I mean, I know my high school roundtable here in a few minutes. I've got people from California, Wisconsin, and Saudi Arabia. A lot of great things going on.
And I agree. We have to be our own advocates. We have to advocate for phys ed, and I think the community online we've got a great conversation started, and now I think we need to start taking this idea and spreading it. So making our whole system, our whole county, state, country, world better. I think that would be the goal. So I guess we should sign off because I know you needed like at least 2 or 3 minutes to get to your next session here.
I do. But luckily we have that brain break in, or the brain booster between, sponsored by Spark. I hope that everybody that joined us really appreciate your time. The today's meet discussion we've had has been really good. People asking about getting connected to the Voxer groups, and so I'll answer that in just a minute. If you would fill out the survey at the end, you'll find it on the conference forum. We're going to link it together. And fill out your survey for a chance to win those great Spark prizes. And again, Rich, awesome expertise. Thank you for sharing. And this Google Hangouts YouTube video will definitely be broadcast on the Phys-Edagogy website. So if you miss parts of it, you want to go back, again, we have that resource page on the conference program. And we also have the YouTube link as well. So a lot of great information that you may not be able to all digest at once, but when you go back and look at it, you'll be able to pick it up and hopefully use it in your classes.
And please share the information, everybody. You know, it's great if you take the information, but if you can share it with the other educators that you work with, that even makes it even, you know, more powerful. So don't forget, you can help us do that. So very important. Share. That's why we have the Twitter world. That's why we have the Voxer world. It's a sharing community. We have to share. And that's what we need to work with.
Definitely. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed our session, and you will take the brain booster and get yourself up and moving to get that brain re-engaged. And you'll join us for the next session on either elementary, middle, or a high school roundtable. I'm William Bode, and I'm signing off. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks.